Chapter 2172. Man? Claire frowned slightly and immediately looked at God Feng Zhao with a pleading expression. She pointed at Dustless and cursed, "This bastard peeped at me bathing and tried to rape me." Claire indiscriminately accused Wu Qin, and the label of rapist was mercilessly pinned on him. "Ha! What nonsense are you talking about?" Dustless's old face darkened. He looked at Claire unhappily and warned, "Little girl, you can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. I'm not interested in your 2 lumps of meat, and I didn't peep at you bathing. It's just a misunderstanding between us. I don't mean to humiliate you, I just want you to take me away from here." "Humph, are you scared now?" Claire looked at Dustless with contempt. Seeing that Dustless refused to admit his crime, she thought he was scared. She immediately put her hands on her hips and ordered, "You bastard, you were looking at me lecherously just now." "When did I look at you lecherously?" Dustless's old face turned green. He scolded, "Little girl, don't talk nonsense." For the first time in his life, Dustless felt like a scholar meeting a soldier, unable to reason clearly. No matter what, he was still a monster who had lived for hundreds of years. Dustless wasn't the kind of guy who couldn't move at the sight of a beauty. "Want to rape you?" God Feng Zhao also looked at Claire in shock. Seeing her embarrassed and angry expression, it didn't seem like she was lying. He nodded lightly and looked at Dustless unkindly. This kind of person should be taught an unforgettable lesson. Did you take the wrong script?" Dustless was extremely depressed. He looked at Claire and God Feng Zhao and cursed inwardly, "The male and female lead actually joined hands to deal with me. This kind of thing hasn't happened in hundreds of years. But since you want to get involved in this mess, then I won't be polite." Dustless looked at Feng Zhao coldly. He didn't have a good impression of any male lead. Furthermore, this scenario was too weird. He had actually become a rapist, and this God Feng Zhao wanted to be the hero to save the damsel in distress. He wanted to use him to establish his authority. Just thinking about it made Dustless feel aggrieved. His heart was filled with 100,000 alpacas. "Be careful, this guy is very strange. He subdued my contracted spirit without me noticing." Looking at the red cat in Dustless's arms, Claire stomped her feet in anger. "Are you an elf messenger?" Taking a deep look at Claire, God Feng Zhao's eyes flashed with astonishment. Soon after, he looked at Dustless with extreme caution. "This guy is a bit strange. A man can actually subdue a fairy. He can't be a relative of the fairy you contracted, right?" "Of course not." Claire pursed her lips and pouted. She was rather cute. In fact, she was also very depressed. No matter how she tried to contact Scarlet, this guy wouldn't budge. Dustless seemed to be even more affectionate than his own father. "Brat, you actually want to use me to establish your authority." Dustless stared straight at God Feng Zhao with an ominous glint in his eyes. He had always been the one who tricked others and schemed against others. Now that the male and female lead had turned the tables on him, he felt very uncomfortable. "Everyone has the right to punish a rapist, like you. Not to mention that I only wanted to catch you. Even if I accidentally killed you, you deserved it. Laying your hands on such a cute girl, you really are a beast through and through." God Feng Zhao glanced at the frightened Claire and said faintly, "Accidentally kill me? Brat, are you an idiot?" Dustless looked at God Feng Zhao with ridicule and said disdainfully, "Where did your inflated confidence come from? Cut the crap and bring it on. This time, I will beat you until your mother won't recognize you." God Feng Zhao had a rapist on the left and a rapist on the right. At this moment, he had really angered Dustless. "I am innocent, okay?" Sure enough, a beauty's ability was not to fight, but to charm people. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. God Feng Zhao didn't waste any more words. He aimed at Dustless's flaws and rushed over like a gust of wind. Full of flaws. Seeing Dustless's body full of flaws, God Feng Zhao curled his lips and rushed in front of Dustless in the blink of an eye. His huge fist smashed towards Dustless's face. What fast speed! Is this guy really just an ordinary human? Although his technique is a bit rough, it is obvious that he was an expert in the past. Claire's beautiful eyes lit up. She couldn't help but look at God Fengzhou in a new light. She had only caught a glimpse of that unimaginable speed just now. This stinking brat is going to be unlucky. Looking at the fist smashing towards Dustless, Claire's face lit up with a smile. She could still vividly remember Dustless's humiliation just now. Bang! The fist smashed into Dustless's body, followed by a blood-curdling scream. Ah, my hand. It hurts, stop pinching, it's going to shatter. The blood-curdling scream like a pig being slaughtered spread through the sky. However, this childish voice was the complete opposite of Dustless's aged voice. How is this possible? Why is God Fengzhou the one being beaten up? Claire's pupils shrank. God Fengzhou's fist was gently grasped by Dustless's right hand. He was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. You want to kill me with your half-baked skills? What a retard. With a casual flick, Dustless sent God Fengzhou flying. Soon after, his old face was like a black walk as he pressed towards Claire. What are you doing? I'm warning you, don't mess around. The young girl retreated in fear. At this moment, Claire was really at her wit's end. Mess around? So what if I mess around? Since you've already said that I'm a rapist, why don't we make the act real for once? Claire was pushed to the front of the giant tree. With nowhere to retreat, she could only look at Dustless in fear. Her gaze was slightly trembling. She was extremely scared. That God Fengzhou simply doesn't know what's good for him. He even dares to use me as a stepping stone to save the damsel in distress. Idiot. Dustless sneered as he looked mockingly at the fleeing God Fengzhou. He was too lazy to chase after such an ant. No matter how much he grew, he was just a small character to him. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 average votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2173. Dustless sneered as he looked mockingly at the fleeing God Fengzhou. He couldn't be bothered to chase after such an ant. No matter how much he grew, he was just a small character to Dustless, trash that he could destroy with a flip of his hand. Failing to court death and instead being abused, this was the best embodiment of a male lead. Looking at Dustless, Claire stammered for a long time without saying anything. She could only helplessly look at Dustless. Seeing his cold eyes, she could only beg for mercy. A great person won't hold a grudge against a petty person. Can you spare me this once? I'm still a child who speaks without thinking. Child? Dustless laughed involuntarily and asked coldly, Miss Claire, when you called me a rapist, why didn't you call yourself a child? Who told you to peek at me bathing? Claire said, feeling wronged. Her nose was sour and tears flashed in the corners of her eyes. She looked like she was about to cry. Forget it, just this once. Sighing, Dustless couldn't be bothered to argue with Claire. Moreover, he was the one who had been rude in the first place, barging into someone else's bathing area. Anyone would be incomparably angry if a girl was seen naked by a stranger. Heh, this is the demeanor of a true expert. Claire's small face squeezed out a brilliant smile, then she carefully looked at Dustless. Suddenly, she found that his cold face wasn't as annoying as before, but much more gentle. Can I leave now? After saying this, Claire didn't wait for Dustless's reply and quietly left. Stop, I didn't give you permission. Dustless stopped Claire after taking 2 steps. His body flashed and blocked the girl's path like a city wall. As long as Dustless didn't move aside, this natural barrier would never be able to be crossed. You're going back on your word? Claire looked worriedly at Dustless, her hair covered in sweat. She was nervous, filled with endless fear of this great demon king. Back on my word? I'm not that despicable. Bullying a girl isn't a skill, I just have something I need your help with. Dustless shook his head and immediately said, Take me to your school. I have no interest in staying in this desolate forest. Impossible, this is impossible, absolutely impossible. Without even thinking, Claire directly shook her head to reject Dustless's idea and explained, "Our school only has female elves. What would a man like you do there?" Thinking of how terrifying Dustless was, she didn't say the word pervert in the end. Claire was afraid of angering Dustless. This guy was simply temperamental, turning hostile on a whim. Female elves? Your lousy school is full of weaklings, and there are so many ridiculous rules. Dustlesses, Claire's, Dustless's, Dustless's, Claire's. Of course, there was a special exception, such as God Feng Zhao. This guy was a man through and through, but he was also a proper elf's envoy. Oh right, I can also become an elf's envoy. Dustless's imagination ran wild, his eyes flashing. He didn't think he was any worse than God Feng Zhao. You want to become an elf's envoy? Ha. However, before Dustless could finish his sentence, Claire's mocking voice sounded. Don't say such childish and ridiculous things so casually in the future. It's not time to sleep yet. If you want to dream, it won't be too late at night. You're too ignorant. Some things are rare, but that doesn't mean they don't exist, Dustless said calmly. Claire still didn't know that God Feng Zhao was an exception. Oh right, I'm not going back for now. Suddenly thinking of something, Dustless looked at Claire with a smile. It's still early, I still need your help with something. Gulp. Seeing Dustless sizing her up with glowing eyes, Claire felt a chill all over her body, as if she was dancing with a wolf. It wasn't that Claire was timid, but that Dustless was too strange. I remember you know of a secret place where a holy sword is sealed. Inside the holy sword, there seems to be a spirit. Looking at Claire, Dustless said what he was thinking. How do you know about this? Who told you? Claire was stunned for a moment, then incomparably shocked. She really felt that Dustless was a roundworm in her stomach. His clear eyes seemed to be able to see through everything. You don't have to worry about that. Dustless refused to answer and said lightly, lead the way, Miss Claire. Now is not the time to waste. Otherwise, when it gets dark, we'll have to sleep in the forest. I'm very scared of this quiet wilderness. At night, I need to hug something to sleep. Do you want to try? My embrace is very warm, if you... Stop. Without waiting for Dustless to continue, Claire stopped Dustless and looked at him angrily. You win. I'll take you there now, but if you fail, don't blame me. Signing a contract with a spirit isn't as simple as you think. Hearing the strong threat in Dustless's tone, Claire could only admit defeat. It would be good if she could spend money to avoid disaster. Now, she was nervous just walking with Dustless, not to mention sleeping in the wilderness with Dustless. She even had to be hugged to sleep by this guy, which was worse than killing her. Little girls are indeed timid and can't take a blow. Maybe in her heart, I'm the reincarnation of the Grim Reaper. Seeing Claire's body twitching, Dustless smiled and didn't say anything. In fact, he was just casually scaring her. Even if Claire didn't take him, Dustless wouldn't make things difficult for her. Wanting to become a spirit envoy was just a spur of the moment. Success or failure didn't matter. Anyway, there was no loss. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 gifts plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2174. Little girls. Sure enough, they're all timid and can't take a blow. Perhaps in her heart, I'm the reincarnation of the god of death. Seeing Claire's body twitch, Dustless smiled but didn't say anything. In fact, he was just casually scaring her. Even if Claire didn't bring him along, Dustless wouldn't make things difficult for her. Wanting to become an elf envoy was just a spur-of-the-moment thing. Success or failure didn't matter. In any case, there was nothing to lose. Despicable guy, that's the elf I'm about to sign a contract with. Am I going to give it to this brat for nothing? What am I going to do in the future? Claire was silent the whole way. As they got closer and closer to the ruins where the elf's holy sword was sealed, her heart grew heavier and heavier, more and more unwilling. How could she give up something she'd obtained with great difficulty? Little girl, you'd better not play any tricks. Otherwise, I'll make you regret it for the rest of your life. Dustless's tone was abnormally serious as he suddenly appeared in front of Claire in a flash. That's mine. Pierced by the pain in her heart, Claire shouted in defiance, don't you know this is the act of a bandit? Hearing this, Dustless only smiled disapprovingly. So what if I'm a bandit? The winner is king and the loser is a bandit. As the loser, you only need to wait to be robbed. Claire blinked and was speechless in the end. What Dustless said was the truth. His words were crude but reasonable. This was the nature of the world. Whoever was strong had the final say. How could she blame others for being bullied because she wasn't as strong as others? Moreover, looking at Claire meaningfully, Dustless continued to explain, that elf's holy sword isn't interested in you. You can't control it. Recklessly approaching it will endanger your life. Little girl, you have to understand that in this world, some things are still ownerless, but the outcome is already decided. When you can't obtain it, you have to accept it. Blindly coveting it will only bring misfortune. You speak as if you're the innate owner of the holy sword. Claire curled her lips in disdain. Not bad. Dustless's face was indifferent as he accepted it calmly. It's not that the holy sword chose me, but that I chose it. This is the biggest difference between you and me. The weak will only lower their heads and beg, while the strong will only choose the fate of others. But, then, Dustless changed the topic and looked at Claire with a smile. I've always liked to give others opportunities. How about this? I can give you a chance to sign a contract with a holy sword spirit. Whether or not you succeed will depend on your fate. Really? Claire was overjoyed and looked at Dustless with shining eyes. Of course. In any case, to me, that holy sword is just icing on the cake. It won't play a decisive role. The spirit sealed in the holy sword has rejected many people. If you can sign a contract with it, it can be considered a kind of fate. Dustless nodded seriously. Soon after, he looked into Claire's gem-like eyes and said with a smile, however, you also know that there is no such thing as a free lunch. Everything has a price. What do you want to do? Hearing this, Claire instantly became incomparably nervous. Seeing Dustless staring at her without blinking, she immediately became furious. You perverted beast, are you going to raise another dirty condition? I said before that I'm not interested in your 2 lumps of meat. You don't have any breasts, and you don't have any butt. I don't even know where to start. Dustless looked at the angry Claire with disdain. You bastard, do you know how to speak human language? Claire was furious. If she could, she really wanted the heavens to send down a bolt of lightning and strike this bastard to death. His words were too infuriating. Tell me your conditions. Claire suppressed her anger and demanded. It's very simple. Tell me how to sign a contract with a spirit. Dustless's cold tone was very serious as he looked straight at Claire, waiting for an answer. Gulp. Claire stared blankly for a moment before asking in astonishment, you don't even know how to sign a contract with a spirit, and you still want to become a spirit envoy? I really don't know. Dustless shrugged. As an outsider who had just arrived in this world less than half an hour ago, how would he know how to sign a contract with a spirit? He still needed a local to explain it. Ha 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 ha, I'm going to die of laughter. You don't even know how to sign a contract, and you still want to become a spirit envoy? Wishful thinking. The difficulty of becoming a spirit envoy isn't something you can understand, especially when you're a man. Claire grinned and laughed. She put her hands on her hips and looked unusually proud. Her eyes were full of disdain as she looked at Dustless. She was very sure that he couldn't become a spirit envoy. I really don't know how difficult it is to become a spirit envoy, but, a faint smile appeared on Dustless's face. However, if I defeat a spirit envoy, I only need to blow. Isn't even her contracted sprite still crawling at my feet? Even if Dustless can force the holy sword to bow its head, I will let it understand how terrifying it is to offend me." After saying that, Wu Chen deliberately shook Scarlet, who had a flattering look on his face, in his arms. "You," Claire looked at Dustless frantically. She wanted to cry but had no tears. It was a great shame for a dignified spirit envoy to be defeated by a weak, ordinary human. Moreover, even her contracted spirit was subdued by Dustless. Scarlet had always enjoyed the time she spent with Dustless. "Okay, I'll teach you. Whether you can learn it or not is up to you." Claire had no choice but to compromise, but her heart was full of contempt. A man, an ignorant noob who didn't even know how to sign a contract, wanted to become a spirit envoy? This was something that could only be realized in fairy tales. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2175. After spending about half an hour, Claire told Dustless how to sign a contract with an elf. Only then did the two set off again, rushing to the ruins where the elf was sealed. "Is this really your first time here? It feels so strange. There are some things that you know better than I do." Claire scrutinized Dustless from the corner of her eye. She was full of doubts but had no answers, so she could only look at Dustless. "If you have something to say, just say it. Since I'm in a good mood, ask me any questions you have. Maybe I'll be merciful and answer you." Strolling through the dense elemental forest, the fresh air entered his lungs, making him feel comfortable. Dustless gave a rare smile and said, "This is all because you told me how to sign a contract with an elf." "Humph, do you think that just because I told you how to sign a contract, you can sign a contract with an elf as you please? Signing a contract with an elf is witch G's privilege. A lewd beast like you who peeps at other people's baths can only sign a contract if that elf is blind." Claire bluntly attacked. Then she asked, "Since this is your first time here, how do you know that there are ruins where the elf's holy sword is sealed?" "Well." Dustless raised his eyebrows slightly. This question was really not easy to answer. After all, it was the ability of a transmigrator to foresight. He turned around and saw Claire's face full of doubts. If he didn't answer, she might harass Dustless the whole way. "This is very simple. I'm a big genius. I can tell what people are thinking with a glance. You were bathing just now. No, you were cleaning yourself, right? Your purpose was to sign a contract with the elf here, right?" Dustless casually evaded. "You even know this?" Claire was angry and shocked. She was angry that Dustless had casually tricked her and seen through her thoughts with a glance. That was the ability of a god. How could a mere mortal do it? And she was surprised that Dustless had guessed correctly. She had been bathing just now to sign a contract with the elf. "That's why I'm a big genius." "That elf is mine," Dustless replied with a smile. What a narcissistic guy. Claire's jade-like nose wrinkled slightly. It was rare for her to continue asking. In any case, even if she continued asking, Dustless would just be fooling her. "Oh, right," as if remembering something, Claire's footsteps suddenly stopped. She looked seriously at Dustless and asked, "You know my name, but you haven't said your own." "Dustless." Glancing at Claire, Dustless answered calmly. "Dustless." What a strange name. After chewing it lightly, Claire truly felt that this name was strange. It was like Dustless himself, incompatible with this world. About half an hour later, Dustless and Claire finally arrived at a dilapidated ruin. There were broken walls, messy stones, and weeds everywhere. The entrance to the ruins was sealed by a transparent barrier. "You're so eager to become an elf envoy. What's your goal?" Walking in front of the barrier, Claire turned her head to look at Dustless. Her rolling eyes were filled with vigilance. "If I say I want to destroy the world, are you not going to let me in?" "Sigh, little girl, you're good at everything, but you're too suspicious." Dustless sighed. "Humph, you want to destroy the world? Do you think you're the reincarnation of a demon king?" Claire was rather disdainful. Shortly after, a white light appeared from her white hand and she waved it lightly at the barrier. "Pa!" A crisp sound suddenly sounded. Immediately after, the barrier quickly collapsed and the entrance to the ruins was exposed. A rather ancient aura greeted them. It seemed that this ruin had been around for quite some time. Signing a contract with an elf is a very dangerous thing. If anything happens, I won't save you. Claire glanced at Dustless and reminded him seriously. I should be the one saying this to you. Don't forget that you were my captive before. Dustless rolled his eyes as he walked. This little girl would rather die than admit defeat. Claire's little face was slightly red. Shortly after, she looked at Dustless angrily and retorted with a red face, "That's because I was careless. Stubborn brat. Even if I defeat you again, you still won't admit defeat." Dustless shook his head. He was too lazy to pay attention to Claire. He raised his gaze slightly and looked ahead. A long sword was firmly inserted into the square stone tablet. Is this the holy sword? Claire was delighted. A rare smile appeared on her pretty face as if she had seen a huge treasure. Her eyes were as dazzling as the lights. According to our previous promise, you can sign a contract with it first. Dustless suddenly stopped 5 or 6 meters away from the stone sword and motioned for Claire to go first. Are you sure? There's only one elf. A strange expression flashed across Claire's pretty face. She looked straight at Dustless with an inexplicable meaning. Dustless didn't say anything. He just stood in place and closed his eyes to rest. Dustless, is it? This young lady approves of you. I didn't expect you to keep your promise. A slight ripple appeared in Claire's eyes. She was quite surprised. She actually thought that Dustless would take the opportunity to go back on his word and sign a contract with the elf first. In the end, it's just an elf. It's not worth it for me to go back on my word and betray my character. Actually, I wanted to become an elf envoy on a whim. It would be best if I could become one, but if not, then so be it. Didn't I tell you before? With my strength, becoming an elf envoy is just icing on the cake. It won't have any fundamental effect. On the other hand, if you can really sign a contract with it, it will be fate. Everything depends on fate. If it's yours, no one can snatch it away. If it's not yours, you can't force it either. Dustless spoke frankly with assurance. His deep eyes were as calm as water, aloof from worldly affairs. In all fairness, an elf envoy might be good, but the increase in strength was negligible. It might not even have the slightest effect. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2176. TSK, I didn't expect a perverted beast like you to have such an opinion. Public morals are really degenerating these days. Krell curled her lips. Although her face was full of disdain, she looked at Dustless in amazement. Obviously, she also thought that Dustless's words made sense. Everything depended on fate. If it was yours, you would always be able to obtain it. If it wasn't yours, you would never be able to obtain it even if you racked your brains. Taking a deep breath, Krell walked to the front of the stone sword. Her eyes shone brightly as she started chanting an ancient and cryptic incantation. Boom boom boom. At the same time, a powerful shockwave suddenly erupted from Krell's body. The shockwave of energy hit his face like a slap. This is the divine might that Krell mentioned, right? It seems very powerful. I wonder what mine is like. Krell's cold eyes suddenly turned into an expectant smile. Coming into contact with a new ability, even Dustless couldn't help but smile. He was full of hope for the future. Boom boom boom. Krell's aura grew stronger and stronger. A strong wind spread out, and even the rocks on the wall were peeled off layer by layer and fell to the ground. Come out. Looking down at the long sword in the stone, Krell's seemingly weak hand finally tightly grasped the ancient sword hilt. Her body's strength reached its limit in an instant. Clang, 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 clang. The long sword that was stuck in the stone trembled slightly. At this moment, the deathly still sword body shone brightly as if it had come to life. Then, under Dustless's astonished gaze, the long sword was pulled out of the sheath. Ha ha ha, I pulled it out. Krell was overjoyed. Looking at the shining sharp blade in her hand, a surprised smile appeared on her small face. She showed off to Dustless like a child. Perverted beast, you're destined to have no fate with it. As long as you're happy, Dustless said indifferently. Boom boom boom. At the same time, a dazzling white light suddenly flashed at the top of the cave. In an instant, it was as dazzling as the sun. Dustless and Krell both subconsciously closed their eyes. Caw caw caw. Immediately after, a shattering sound suddenly rang out. Claire suddenly realized that the holy sword in her hand had disappeared. She hurriedly opened her eyes and saw that the divine sword that seemed to be able to cut through iron like mud had actually disappeared. The sword's body was also gradually shattering like particles. What is going on? Claire's eyes widened. Even though she didn't know why the sword had collapsed, she understood that her contract with the elf had failed. Look at that sword on your head. It's full of spirituality. It should be the true holy sword. Dustless' voice suddenly sounded, attracting Claire's attention. She raised her head to look at the sky above her head. A sparkling, translucent holy sword inlaid with dazzling gems invaded her eyes. What a beautiful holy sword. After being stunned for a while, Dustless didn't make any superfluous comments. He only felt that this sword was very exquisite. Buzz buzz buzz, however, this sentence seemed to have angered the holy sword. The sword's body suddenly erupted with a dazzling light. Its aura became even sharper, and there was a vague sword intent wreaking havoc. Even from a dozen meters away, one's skin was faintly aching. What a willful holy sword. Dustless shook his head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He didn't expect that a single sentence would actually make this deceptive holy sword hostile to him. The meaning it revealed was as if it was saying, I'm not only beautiful, I'm also very powerful. What? Dustless suddenly looked at Claire. Seeing that the ambition in the depths of her eyes hadn't been extinguished, he asked with a smile, you still don't plan to give up? If you continue to fight with it, your life may be in danger. This holy sword hasn't truly awakened yet. If it completely awakens, I don't think I need to tell you the consequences. TCH, you're clearly just an outsider who doesn't even know how to sign a contract with a spirit. You still want to lecture me? Claire raised her head and looked at Dustless with dissatisfaction. She picked up her weapon again, the flame whip. Her contracted spirit, Scarlet, also looked at the holy sword floating in the sky with burning eyes. Her meaning was self-evident. Stubborn. Seeing this, Dustless directly found a place to sit down and watched this scene indifferently. Even though Claire's courage was outstanding, as a transmigrator, Dustless understood that in the end, this stubborn little girl had failed. The holy sword had a spirit. Since it had rejected Claire the first time, no matter how hard it tried, it wouldn't have the slightest effect. Then let me properly train you, Scarlet. The whip in her hand was covered in a layer of blazing flames. Claire and her contracted spirit, Scarlet, attacked the holy sword at the same time. Clang, clang, clang. When the whip hit the holy sword, it would emit a series of loud and clear rumbles. Scarlet also soared into the air, his entire body covered in flames. In an instant, the originally docile Scarlet suddenly became wild. He opened his small fangs and bit the holy sword. However, all of this was of little use. The holy sword was completely fine. Its surface still emitted a dazzling gem aura. Claire's attack appeared very weak. Inside the cave, a human, a cat, and a holy sword were engaged in an intense confrontation. Hum, 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 after a few minutes, the holy sword seemed to be enraged. The surface of the sword flashed with a dazzling light again. The sword floating in the air also suddenly adjusted its direction. The cold light radiating from the tip of the sword was aimed at Scarlet and suddenly pierced out. "Scarlet, be careful." Seeing this, Claire was greatly alarmed. She knew that the sealed spirit had been provoked repeatedly and was truly enraged. Poochie. However, even though Claire reminded him that it was Scarlet, it was useless. The holy sword was too fast and pierced through Scarlet in an instant. "Awoo!" Scarlet let out a blood-curdling scream. Soon after, his body collapsed, turning into raindrops of flames that drifted away. After eliminating Scarlet, the holy sword adjusted its square shape again. The tip of the sword was aimed at Claire. Without hesitation, it suddenly pierced forward, wanting to pierce through her entire body. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2177. "Aw!" Scarlet let out a blood-curdling scream. His body immediately collapsed, turning into raindrops of flames that drifted away. After eliminating Scarlet, the holy sword once again adjusted its square shape. The tip of the sword was aimed at Claire, and without hesitation, it pierced forward, wanting to pierce through her. Scarlet. Seeing Scarlet turn into a drop of fire and disappear in a puff of smoke, Claire was grief-stricken. She was in incomparable pain, and even the holy sword that was speeding towards her was thrown to the side. "Little girl, do you want to die? Hurry and dodge." Seeing Claire kneeling on the ground in a daze, Dustless frowned. Soon after, his voice became several times louder. The deafening sound made one's head ring. After Dustless's roar, Claire also recovered from her grief. Seeing the holy sword coming toward her, her eyes were filled with despair. "Am I going to die?" A sad but beautiful smile appeared on Claire's pretty face. Looking at the holy sword piercing toward her throat, she actually felt relieved. Perhaps to someone like her who had experienced so many twists and turns in her life, death was also a kind of relief. Soon after, Claire calmly closed her eyes. Facing the holy sword coming toward her, she actually didn't dodge or evade. "You've already seen through life and death at such a young age? That's a good attitude." Dustless's voice suddenly spread, echoing in the deathly silent cave. Soon after, a special wave of energy erupted. The holy sword flying toward Claire actually stopped uncontrollably. However, a person only has one life. It's really a pity for a beautiful flower to die before it has even bloomed. Dustless's words seemed to open a door for Claire. Her slightly closed eyes once again opened. Looking at the holy sword so close to her, Claire's eyes couldn't help but stagnate. It was only an inch away, and the holy sword would be able to cut her throat and end her life in one fell swoop. However, the holy sword was clearly intimidated by some kind of power and couldn't continue forward. It only floated in front of Claire, struggling. "Come here, my contracted spirit." Dustless smiled indifferently. He suddenly grabbed with his large hand, and an extraordinary gravitational force gushed out from his palm. 10,000 heavenly attraction. Endless gravitational force came from behind. Not only was the holy sword unable to continue forward, but it was also pulled back by Dustless, flying toward Dustless unwillingly. "Just a contracted spirit. If I can't even subdue you, how can I continue to wander the universe? Wouldn't my dreams and ambitions be empty words? You still dare to resist me? You're overestimating yourself." Holding the simple and unadorned sword hilt, Wu Chen gently looked at the jeweled sword body. Suddenly, he remembered the way God Fengzhou signed a contract with the holy sword. Immediately, he started to learn it. Poochie. Dustless pierced his skin with the holy sword. Blood flowed out of his palm in an instant. The blood and the holy sword became one. Dustless faintly felt a sense of intimacy with the holy sword. Then he recalled the ancient incantation that Claire used to sign a contract with the holy sword. Dustless also copied it, and the crazy holy sword actually calmed down. Boom boom boom. Then, an extraordinary energy wave erupted from Dustless's body. It wasn't very strong, just like an ordinary wind wave. But Claire was so shocked that her eyeballs almost fell out. Is this divine might? How is this possible? Absolutely impossible. What kind of monster is this kid? He's not Witch G. It's fine if he can sign a contract with a spirit, but he learned it in half an hour? Then what am I? Claire's mouth twitched. She was the genius problem child of Alicia Elven Academy's Crow class, but compared to Dustless, she suddenly realized that she was too weak. Although the divine might was extremely weak, it had to be understood that Dustless had only been in contact with the spirit class for half an hour. Sure enough, comparisons are odious. Claire was incomparably complicated. She was rather jealous of the holy sword that had submitted, but she was also happy for Dustless. After all, if it weren't for Dustless, she would have been killed. Is this the power of the spirits? After a while, the movements in the huge room finally stopped, and the holy sword disappeared. Dustless gently closed his eyes and suddenly felt that there was an additional power in his body. Humph, you got lucky, kid. Claire came over, her eyes shining. She looked at Dustless as if she was looking at a treasure, and a sly smile flashed across her face from time to time. Got lucky? Nonsense, the spirit was clearly subdued by my power. Dustless snorted. He looked at Claire with extreme narcissism and said, after all, I'm an out-and-out great genius. You're right, but this sentence is really asking for a beating. Claire was speechless. He actually called himself a genius. How thick was this person's skin? However, it was undeniable that Dustless was a great genius. I'm really surprised that you could sign a contract with the Holy Sword. Apart from Demon King Suleiman, you're the second person to do so. Claire looked at Dustless suspiciously. This guy couldn't be Suleiman's reincarnation, right? No, I'm the third person. Dustless smiled mysteriously. At least there was God Feng Zhao ahead of him. I really don't understand what that spirit saw in you. How am I inferior to you? You're merely a perverted beast. Claire pouted her small mouth and complained very discontentedly. That's very simple. Dustless looked into Claire's eyes and said with a serious expression, that female spirit knew that I'm a flower that blossoms before flowers and is loved by everyone, so she fell in love with me and decisively chose to throw herself at me. You're really shameless and shameless. Claire rolled her eyes. This guy's skin was really so thick that there was no limit to it. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 comments plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 2178. Shameless? Dustless blinked his watery eyes, full of innocence, and sighed. Using my face to make a living is shameless? It was clearly your strength that convinced the elf. What does that have to do with your appearance? Don't be so full of yourself. Claire pouted, full of disdain. Heh, so you admit that I'm a genius? Dustless smiled, his face full of pride. You dug a hole for me to jump into. Glaring at Dustless, Claire rolled her eyes and said meaningfully, no matter what, I was the one who brought you to these ruins. You should thank me for signing a contract with the elf, right? That's right. Dustless nodded slightly. Claire's words were true. No matter what, she was the one who brought him to sign a contract with the elf, so he had to take credit for it. Then you should thank me, right? Seeing that Dustless didn't deny her contribution, Claire's smile became even more obvious. Her squinted eyes made her look like a cunning fox. Wait. You seem to be implying something. Scrutinizing Claire, Dustless suddenly recalled the girl's personality. He suddenly realized something and asked bluntly, you can't be thinking of signing a contract with me, right? TSK, no wonder I think highly of you. You are indeed smart. Claire nodded like a chick chasing rice and even gave Dustless a thumbs up. Don't give me that. Dustless bluntly slapped Claire's little hand away, rolled his eyes, and reprimanded, "Now you know I'm smart. What about before? I didn't see you flattering me before." Claire wanted to say something but stopped. With a sad face, she said, "No matter what, I was the one who brought you to sign a contract with the elf. You won't lose anything by being my contracted elf. Sorry, I'm not interested in selling myself. It's getting late. Let's leave before it gets dark. You don't want to sleep in the wilderness with the lewd beast you speak of, right?" Dustless deliberately looked at Claire lecherously. His eyes were full of aggression, as if he wanted to eat Claire alive. "Let's go." All the hairs on Claire's body stood on end as if she had been provoked. She hurriedly ran away. Passing through the endless wilderness and several mountains, an academy sleeping deep in the mountains entered their eyes. This was the Elven Academy. Rather than calling it a sprite academy, it would be more appropriate to call it a town. There were all kinds of things that one could think of, and there was nothing that one could not buy. I really don't understand. Everyone knows that it's Witch G's privilege to sign contracts with fairies. How can a man like you sign a contract with fairies? In the academy, Claire's face was full of confusion. Dustless, this mysterious species, was puzzled. "Didn't I explain before? I'm loved by everyone and flowers bloom when they see me. That female elf was infatuated with me." Dustless yawned and impatiently explained, repeating it dozens of times. "You can't even fool a 3-year-old, Claire complained. Her cheeks puffed up in anger. Soon after, she asked with a doubtful yet certain expression, "You can't really be the reincarnation of Demon King Suleiman, right? Would you believe me if I said it was true?" Dustless looked at Claire with a smile and then said helplessly, "I'll naturally tell you what you should know. It's useless to say what you shouldn't know. No matter what, you're still my contracted elf, kid." Seemingly tired, Claire didn't feel like asking anymore. She drooped her head and gave up on pestering Dustless. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At this moment, a gust of wind suddenly blew. Claire froze and subconsciously looked up. She saw Dustless directly hugging her and kissing her without hesitation. Boom boom boom. Claire's head buzzed. She looked at Dustless in shock. She felt a warm current wrap around her lips and only one thought came to her mind. "I've been violated by a perverted beast, I've been violated by a perverted beast, I've been violated by a perverted beast, I can't get married in the future, bastard." Claire didn't know where she got the strength from, but she suddenly pushed Dustless away. Her eyes burned with flames and she once again grasped the flame whip in her hand. She angrily glared at Dustless and muttered, "Charcoal, charcoal, charcoal, really, you really don't know what's good for you. Didn't you want to kiss me? Now that I've fulfilled your wish, you're blaming me. You took advantage of me and still want to burn me into charcoal. Are you trying to rape me first and then kill me? Sigh, are all women these days so heartless?" Dustless sighed as if he had suffered a great grievance. "You, this, bastard." Claire was furious and almost fainted from anger. She didn't care about her image and roared without any grace, "When did I say I wanted to kiss you? Women from other worlds really do have amnesia. Isn't signing a contract with a high-grade humanoid elf through kissing? Don't tell me you purposely chose to forget and still want to take advantage of me? Poor me, my chastity is going to be violated again." Dustless complained. Claire couldn't help but be startled. The flames on her body instantly dissipated. Only then did she suddenly remember this matter. Signing a contract with a high-grade humanoid elf was indeed through kissing, and she was the one who had asked Dustless to become her contract elf. Forget it, I'll just treat it as being kissed by a pet. Claire took a deep breath and calmed her anger. She looked at Dustless unkindly. "Then from now on, you're my contract elf. Sorry, there's something I forgot to say." Dustless looked embarrassed. He scratched his head and said, "I wasn't prepared before, so I haven't become your contract elf yet. Why don't we do it again? At most, I'll lose out by being kissed by you. Go to hell, you bastard." Claire couldn't hide her anger anymore. She swung her flame whip at Dustless. This kind of scum was better off dead. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 comments plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 2179. Claire was truly enraged. She had never seen such a shameless person in her life. Not only did he take advantage of her, but his words were also so infuriating. What do you mean I took advantage of you? Am I a bold and unrestrained woman who doesn't know how to be reserved? Especially when Wu Chen looked at her as if a little wife had been wronged, as if she had been possessed by a beast. Claire even had the thought of perishing together with Wu Chen. Boom boom boom. Claire was like an enraged lion, constantly waving her flaming whip and using all her strength to lash at Dustless. Many buildings were annihilated, but Dustless was like a loach, unable to touch her at all. Bang! With a sweep of her whip, Dustless casually moved his body, effortlessly dodging Claire's attack. However, the tree behind Dustless was tragically broken by Claire's whip. Stinking brat, don't dodge if you're a man. Claire stomped her feet in anger. After attacking for a long time, she still couldn't hit Dustless. On the contrary, she was exhausted. You need to personally verify whether I'm a man or not. Next time, it's best if you don't say such things. You're implying that you've seen my body. You frivolous woman, you've unknowingly taken advantage of me. Dustless shook his head and sighed. He looked as if he had suffered a great loss. I'll kill, stop it, Claire. This is Alicia Academy, not your home. A cold and delicate voice interrupted Claire. The tone was very dignified, like a serious and old-fashioned knight. Another familiar-looking chick. With this low shout, not only did Claire stop, but Dustless also looked over. The newcomer was a young girl. Her appearance was refined and cute. Her skin was flawless like snow. Her beautiful water-blue hair flowed down naturally. Her entire body emitted a heroic spirit that was not inferior to men. Her eyes were dazzling and dazzling. It was just like the first impression the young girl gave Wu Chen, a female knight. Alice Farangelto, disappear from where you came from. Otherwise, I won't go easy on you. Krell was indeed a problematic child of the crow class. When he saw Alice walking over, he looked as if he had eaten gunpowder. His face was filled with hostility. Claire Lucio, however, Alice seemed to be used to it. She looked at Claire very calmly. Seeing the destroyed facilities around her, she said impolitely, the school forbids private fights. As for the two of you. Strange, I've never seen your faces before. Are you also a problem child in the crow class? Alice's expression softened slightly as she looked at Dustless in a daze. She didn't remember such a person from the crow class. As for me, hearing this, Dustless frowned slightly, at a loss for words. He really couldn't think of a suitable identity to fool her, and this Alice before him seemed to hate men. Hee, let's see how you're going to muddle your way through. Claire pouted slightly as she looked at Dustless with schadenfreude. She was very happy for Dustless to be unlucky. I'm Claire Lucio's contracted spirit. Dustless's eyes moved slightly as he found a lame excuse. But who would have thought that just as Dustless finished speaking, Alice's face darkened. She looked at Dustless with caution and exposed Dustless's lie without holding back. Don't look down on our night order. Since you're Claire Lucio's contracted spirit, why would she chase after you? This reason is too ridiculous. You are very suspicious. You have to come with me and figure out your identity. And you too. Alice's gaze suddenly turned to Claire as her tone was meticulous. Why? Dustless and Claire asked at the same time, which was rare. Claire's reaction was the most intense. She usually didn't get along with Alice. Now that this fellow wanted to take her away, of course she wouldn't be willing. If you refuse, then don't blame me for being impolite. Alice obviously wasn't someone to be trifled with. Seeing Claire arguing with her, she immediately retaliated even more fiercely, unsheathing the sharp sword at her waist. Why don't you guys talk first? I have something to deal with your dean." Although the battle between women was exciting, Dustless wasn't interested in participating. "I didn't give permission. A dangerous person of unknown origin like you must be thoroughly investigated." Seeing Dustless leave, Alice instantly chased after him. "Get out of my way, you're no match for me." Dustless's brows furrowed. If it weren't for the fact that the girl in front of him didn't have any ill intentions, he would have slapped her to death already. "Outsider, you're quite arrogant." Dustless's words seemed to have angered Alice. Her delicate little face was filled with hostility. "Seeing that you're an outsider, I'll give you 3 moves." Alice looked at Dustless arrogantly and stuck out her chest, revealing her proud side. "Give him 3 moves?" Hearing this, Claire's expression was indescribably strange. If it was Dustless who said this, she could understand, but if it was Alice, at the same time, the conflict between Dustless, Claire, and Alice attracted a lot of attention. Whether it was Claire or Alice, they could both be considered influential figures in this school. "Did I hear wrongly? You want to give me 3 moves?" Dustless couldn't help but be dumbfounded. To be honest, he was really hit by these words. He could clearly feel that he was despised by this proud little girl. "That's right." Alice nodded seriously, then said seriously, "If you can beat me, I can pretend that nothing happened and let bygones be bygones." "That sounds very magnanimous." Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He really didn't know where this girl got her confidence from. She actually wanted to give him 3 moves, overestimating herself. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2180. What, you don't dare to come? Seeing that Dustless was still standing there like a rock, Alice raised her eyebrows slightly. Her eyes narrowed into crescents, and she said with some arrogance, "Then please cooperate with my work. Come with me now. If you don't have any problems, I will naturally apologize." Dustless still didn't move. He looked at Alice quietly, as if she wasn't talking about him. "What if I don't go with you?" Dustless asked with a smile. "Then strength will solve the problem." Alice regained her coldness and looked at Dustless with burning eyes. "Heh heh." Dustless laughed dryly, then asked jokingly, "Little girl, what if I don't want to duel with you?" Are you playing with me?" "Very good, unfamiliar face. You have great courage." Alice's face darkened, her gem-like eyes filled with hostility. "Since you don't know what's good for you, don't blame me." Swish swish swish. With light steps, Alice was like a gentle breeze. In the blink of an eye, she was behind Dustless. Dustless was still looking forward, staring at the place where Alice had been standing. It was as if he hadn't realized what had happened. What a slow reaction. Alice felt disdain in her heart. She curled her lips, then grabbed Dustless's arm tightly with one hand and his thick shoulder with the other. She warned, "You better not act rashly. If you don't have any bad intentions, I will naturally let you go. I will also personally apologize. What if I insist on refusing?" Dustless turned his head to look at the serious Alice. He stared at her for a while, then nodded lightly. "Little girl is not bad looking, and her temper is much gentler than Claire's. Do you want to be my maid? I just happen to be lacking someone to serve me, so I'll let you have it." "You, impudent. You forced me to do this." Alice's face flushed red, feeling that her dignity had been insulted by Dustless. As the leader of the night regiment, Dustless actually asked her to be his maid in front of so many people. If she didn't teach this arrogant brat a lesson, where would she put her face in the future? Who would listen to her? Thinking of this, Ellie unreservedly increased her strength. Her shoulder, which was being grabbed, actually made a caw sound. Heavens, do you want to die? How dare you talk to Alice like that? Well said, he deserves to be humiliated by Alice's authority. Will this guy's shoulder will be crushed? The students who were attracted by the commotion pointed at Wu Chen. Everyone sighed and shook their heads. They understood that someone was going to be unlucky. As the leader of the knights, Alice was respected by everyone. Now that Wu Chen had provoked her, wasn't he courting death? Not bad, very comfortable. Who taught you how to massage shoulders? That person must be a master with superb skills, but your strength is still too weak. If you can use more strength, that would be good enough. Continue, I'm more and more satisfied with you as a maid. Dustless squinted his eyes in satisfaction, as if he was enjoying a stroll in the clouds. After walking with Claire for half a day, his muscles and bones were really sore. Pfft. Ha ha ha, Alice, could it be that all the skills you've learned over the years are to massage people's shoulders and legs? Look at how much Dustless is enjoying it. Claire held her belly and laughed without a care for her image, taking the opportunity to add fuel to the fire. She wouldn't let go of any opportunity to humiliate Alice. You, this bastard, Alice was so angry that she was trembling. Every word that came out of her mouth was said through biting her tongue. It was the first time in her life that someone had humiliated her like this, especially in front of so many people. Since you want to be beaten, I'll fulfill your wish. Alice's eyes became even colder. She was like an ice goddess, her entire body emitting a cold aura. Boom boom boom. At the same time, a formless energy suddenly erupted from her body. Caught off guard, the crowd was pushed back by this powerful energy. Some of them even fell to the ground due to their carelessness. This is her divine might? It seems not bad, and her strength is just average. No wonder she could become the commander of this knight regiment. Unfortunately, you chose the wrong enemy this time. Dustless only turned his head and looked at Alice quietly. The ripples in his heart calmed down, and then a trace of negligible spiritual pressure shot out from his shoulder. Bang! Alice's hand that was holding Dustless's shoulder was instantly sent flying by the terrifying force. She took a few steps back. This. Looking at Dustless in shock, Alice couldn't help but look at him in a different light. She immediately recalled the humiliation from before and angrily rebuked, "Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you have some strength. You're still not strong enough to defeat me." Dustless heard her and turned a deaf ear. He suddenly looked up and quietly glanced at the reflection in the corner. He said impatiently, "After watching for so long, you should come out and end this farce, right? Otherwise, I'm really going to make a move." "What did you say?" Alice was furious. She was right in front of him, but this kid was talking to the foot of the wall. He even said some strange things. Was this a disguised disregard and provocation? "Since you're not going to make a move, I'll attack you first." The energy ripples on Alice's body grew stronger and stronger. She had accumulated power and was about to reach her limit. Just as she was about to pounce, a cold voice stopped her. "Stop it, Alice." A short sentence, but it made Alice stop immediately. She was all too familiar with the owner of this voice. It was the dean of this academy. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 gifts plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2181. Seeing that Alice's biting cold attacks had suddenly stopped, the surrounding students who had nothing better to do were all slightly stunned. Even if they didn't say it out loud, everyone was well aware of it. In the entire Alicia Elven Academy, other than the dean, who else could be so intimidating? "Dean, this guy's background is unknown. He's sneaking around, please." Alice turned around and saw the white-haired woman walking over elegantly. Her expression changed slightly. Just as she was about to complain, she was interrupted by Dustless. "Chick, pay attention to your tone. What do you mean by unknown origin? I walked into this school openly. Did you see me sneaking around?" Wu Chen didn't give Alice any face and said directly, it's obviously you who is abusing your position to avenge your personal grudge. You're talking nonsense. There's never been someone like you in the academy. You must have some secret plot to sneak into the academy, Alice retorted with a red face. However, as the dean, Grievous, remained silent. He stared at Dustless for a while, and a deep shock flashed through his eyes. That's enough, Alice. Seeing that the two were going to continue arguing, Grievous said seriously, this is a new student of our school. The previous incident ends here. New student? Everyone was astonished and looked at Dustless strangely. Claire's eyes were especially wide open as she looked at Gravis in disbelief. This guy is a new student? Impossible. Claire complained in her heart. She didn't believe Grievous's words at all. Follow me. Glancing at Dustless with a meaningful look, Grievous then left. This woman seems to have seen through something. Dustless frowned slightly and followed. If he wanted to stay in this school, he had to get this woman's approval. Let's see what you're up to. Dustless is incomparably leisurely. No matter how this woman plays, he must seize the opportunity to subdue her. Watch me expose your vulgar tricks. She glared fiercely at the departing Dustless. Without a second thought, Alice decisively followed after him. What if this fellow harms the dean? As a knight, she had to protect him. Why is that old witch Gravis so slow? What a waste of my time. In Grievous's office, a handsome young man was complaining about the dissatisfaction in his heart. This person was God Fengzhao, who had been defeated by Dustless. He had already arrived at Alicia Academy. Creak. The tightly shut door was suddenly pushed open, and several figures entered one after another. He's finally here. Fengzhao heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Gravis. However, he still grumbled in dissatisfaction, damned witch, why are you here? When he saw Dustless, God Fengzhao immediately cursed out loud. He would never forget the scene of him being defeated so miserably. What a joke. If you can be here, why can't I be here? Dustless asked indifferently. You're just a stray dog. You know each other? Grievous sat in his office with a look of deep surprise and curiosity. The two seemed to be in conflict. Of course, I was on my way here and happened to meet this guy. At that time, he was assaulting a girl named Claire. God Fengzhao explained, his tone carrying a hint of schadenfreude. No matter what, Claire was still a student of this school. As the dean, Grievous definitely wouldn't let Dustless off. God Fengzhao also knew how powerful this witch was. Assaulting Claire? The first one to speak was not Grievous, but Alice, who did not get along with Dustless. She looked at Dustless blankly and said angrily, Are you a man? You only know now. Aren't you a little too slow? Dustless admitted in a disguised way. At the same time, he subconsciously touched his chin and muttered to himself strangely, Do I really look like a woman? You bastard are a bastard with a human face and a beast's heart. Beast scum and pervert, I'm going to make you into a salted cod. Alice roared crazily. If it wasn't for Grievous, she might have already attacked Dustless. Little girl, you really don't know what's good for you. Dustless looked at the aggrieved Alice speechlessly and couldn't help but complain. You were the one who took advantage of me. Before, you were touching and pinching me. Now, you're acting as if I raped you. Sigh, morals are degenerating day by day. You can even say such shameless words. Alice stomped her feet and her face was bright red. Thinking about it carefully, she was indeed the one who had taken liberties with Wu Chen previously. Her face became even redder. This matter ends here. Grievous waved his hand, indicating that Alice could leave. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Alice was too naive. Bickering with Dustless was just asking for humiliation. She didn't even know that she was being set up. But he violated the girl called Claire. I heard it myself. God Fengzhao took the opportunity to interrupt. Is that so? Do you have proof? Dustless looked at God Fengzhao casually and sarcastically said, Since you saw me violate her, why didn't you stand up and stop me? Did a coward like you run to a corner to watch the show? What a scum. God Fengzhou was speechless. Of course he stood up and decisively saved the damsel in distress. Who would have thought that the difference in strength was too great? He was beaten up by Dustless and lost all his face. Glancing at God Fengzhou, whose face was bruised and swollen, Grievous also guessed something. Let's just get over such a small matter. Claire didn't say that just now. He stared deeply at Dustless, especially the mark on his right hand, which attracted Grievous's attention. His eyes instantly emitted a bright light. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2182. You signed a contract with a fairy? Grievous asked in shock. Due to his excitement, he sat up instantly and looked at the seal on Dustless's hand in disbelief. How can a man sign a contract with a fairy? Isn't that the privilege of which G? Alice's eyes widened in shock. So this guy is like me. God Fengzhou was also very surprised. He naively thought that he was the only special one. He didn't expect Dustless to jump out at this moment. Yeah, I'm a genius after all. Waving the seal in his hand, Dustless was very proud. After all, it only took half an hour for a layman to sign a contract with a fairy. No one would believe him if he told others. You're really narcissistic. Alice rolled her eyes in annoyance. At the same time, she swore to wash her hands 100 times when she went back because Dustless had touched them. Very good. Grievous smiled faintly as if nothing had happened. He looked at Dustless and confirmed again, what is your contract with a fairy? Bang. As soon as Grievous finished speaking, the tightly shut door was pushed open. A flaming red girl with a small bust appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Claire Lucio. Everyone frowned, especially Alice, who didn't have a good relationship with Claire. Her pretty face turned cold. You came in without knocking. Do you think this is your dorm? However, what made Alice angry was that Claire only glanced at her and didn't pay attention to her anymore. She was beautifully ignored. You. How long have you been with this stinky man? Your personality has changed. You like to ignore people like him. Alice's mouth twitched. She realized that Grievous, the dean, didn't say much, so she could only shut up. He stole my sealed fairy and signed a contract with that holy sword. Claire suddenly opened her mouth and pointed at Dustless. From now on, this guy is my contracted fairy. Damn it, why did it end like this? Why did the rapist suddenly become a contract spirit? God Fengzhou's legs slipped and he almost fell to the ground. Previously, he had said that Dustless had violated Claire. But now, the speed at which he was slapping his face was too fast. You signed a contract with the Holy Sword? Grievous was even more surprised. He immediately recalled and said, it seems that yours is special. That Holy Sword rejected dozens of people and suddenly signed a contract with you, a man who can't sign an elven contract. There must be something special about it. At this point, Grievous looked at Dustless with even more curiosity. From now on, you are a student of the Elven Academy. He looked at Dustless and asked again, tell me, what is your goal? It's very simple. I'm just trying to make a living, Dustless said lightly. Although his tone was light, it was unusually serious. Trying to earn a living? Not only Claire and Alice, but even the emotionless Grievous was shocked by Dustless's words. You want to be an elven messenger just to make a living? This reason is too weird. Another problematic student. Grievous sighed and immediately shook his head. Then in the future. Oh right, what's your name again? Dustless. Grievous nodded and immediately continued, then in the future, Dustless and God Fengzhou, both of you are new students of the Crow class. Alice, now bring the two of them to the school to take a look. After about a few minutes, the few of them came out of Grievous's office. Everyone's expression was very strange. I'm going to be in the same class as this brat in the future. How unfortunate. God Fengzhou thought sadly. The wound from Dustless's lesson was still stinging. Charcoal. 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 Claire looked at Dustless angrily. In her heart, she had already regarded him as her property. She didn't forget how Dustless and Alice were flirting with each other just now. Two boys came all of a sudden. The members of the night group must be doubled. These two are not easy to deal with, especially that Dustless. He is even suspected of assaulting Claire. Alice thought in her heart as she looked at the satisfied Dustless. Everyone had different thoughts in their hearts. Only Dustless looked indifferent. He was humming a tune as if everything had nothing to do with him. His eyes were fixed on the scenery outside the window. Creak. After a short while, the group arrived at the Crow class. Dustless and the others were like cranes in a flock of chickens, attracting everyone's attention in an instant. In particular, there was a blonde girl whose looks were not inferior to Claire's. She had a very noble and proud temperament. Her eyes were rolling as she stared unblinkingly at Dustless, who was beside Claire. Who is this? He seems to have a very good relationship with Claire. The blonde girl's face was full of suspicion. Soon after, she rubbed her chin and smiled. Claire is actually standing beside him. This means that he is very important. This guy will be my servant from now on. Dustless was still at a loss. Naturally, he didn't know that he had been targeted the moment he came to the Crow class. As for God Fengzhou, no one cared. This guy was ugly and had no human rights. Previously, he had been beaten black and blue by Dustless. Naturally, he wouldn't attract anyone's attention. On the contrary, groups of young girls were staring at Wu Qin. His appearance was originally handsome and outstanding. His deep eyes were sparkling like clear spring water. Everything could be seen at a glance. There was also a unique temperament of vicissitudes on his body. It was very eye-catching. Some people were even infatuated with him. You bastard. Claire took the opportunity to pinch Dustless's waist and scolded in a low voice. Who told you to be so handsome? Do you understand that you are guilty? You better not mess around. Otherwise, I will definitely turn you into charcoal. Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He cursed inwardly. Is it my fault that I am handsome? It only means that I inherited good genes. Jealousy is useless. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2183. Dustless was also speechless at Claire's complaints. Sometimes, when a woman was unreasonable, it was really a headache. Moreover, she had a bunch of crooked reasons. It just so happened to prove that saying, only women and villains were difficult to deal with. Linslet Laurenfrost, take back your possessive gaze. Dustless is my contracted spirit. Feeling Linslet's fiery gaze, Claire became even angrier. At the same time, she glared fiercely at Dustless and directly hugged Dustless's left arm. She even said noisily, "Did you see that?" He didn't resist. This guy is my contracted spirit. You stray cat who likes to steal fish, you better watch out. Ah, Claire Lucio. I think she seems to dislike you a lot. Linslet's movements were elegant. Her right hand held her chin as she slowly walked over with graceful steps. Look, this guy's expressionless face means you don't have any charm. That's right, who told you to be a flat-chested girl? After saying that, Linslet purposely straightened her chest and looked at Claire with disdain. She even cast a seductive glance at Dustless in an extremely bewitching manner. You, this, bastard, Claire was furious. Like a kitten whose tail had been stepped on, her hair stood on end. She moved closer to Dustless and said in his ear, "Don't tell me you've taken a fancy to this big-chested girl? You pervert. You're too easy to drive a wedge between us." Dustless felt his head hurt. He raised his hand and rubbed Claire's head. He advised, look at the other people's gazes. They're all gloating. Do you want them to laugh at you? I'm warning you, private fights are prohibited in the academy. Alice's gaze swept over the two of them with warning. I'll let you go this time, but if there's a next time. Humph. Claire put away her whip and glared fiercely at Linslet. However, not long after, Claire was slapped in the face again. Newcomer, do you want to sit next to me? Linslet completely ignored Claire's previous words and very naturally threw flirtatious glances at Dustless. Where does this guy get his charm from? God Feng Zhao, who was at the side, wanted to cry but had no tears. He realized that he was being ignored by everyone like Heir. He couldn't help but curse in his heart, it's all Dustless's fault. If it wasn't for this brat beating me up so badly, I wouldn't have been ignored by everyone and even despised. I feel that sitting beside the two of you is too dangerous, so I refuse. Lightly shaking his head, Dustless was not interested. You? Claire glanced at Dustless curiously. Her puzzled expression was clearly asking, who was the other person? You, of course. Dustless said without hesitation. These words instantly ignited Claire's fury. She took out the flame whip that she had originally put away. Dustless, you traitor, pervert, scum. Claire didn't care about her ladylike image at all. Her temper was as fierce as fire. She pointed at Dustless and cursed without caring about the situation. Let's go. Take me to the dormitory to take a look. Dustless was too lazy to pay attention to Claire and disdained to bicker with her. Her once respected older sister had left her, causing Claire to be abnormally nervous about the people and things around her. She had an extremely crazy possessive desire. Of course, this wasn't her fault. After Claire's experience, anyone would have a great change in temperament. Alright, you come over too. Both of you are boys, so naturally you can't live together with girls. I specially built a new dormitory for you. Alice was immensely proud, as if she had done something amazing. She proudly said, your dormitory will be guarded by a group of knights. If you want to do anything dirty to girls, you will be discovered immediately. So I advise you to be tactful. Guard? God Feng Zhao couldn't help but be stunned. He bluntly asked, how is this different from living in prison? I protest. That old witch Grievous would definitely not do this. You must be abusing your position to take revenge. You better not be too self-righteous. Alice coldly glanced at God Feng Zhao and bluntly said, I have to disappoint you this time. I only made a slight suggestion, and the dean agreed without any hesitation. This is different from the original work. I don't remember God Feng Zhao being monitored when he first arrived. That old witch is really a scheming bitch, Dustless frowned. In the original work, he didn't remember God Feng Zhao being treated like this. Although it was quite miserable, at least he wasn't being monitored. In this way, the target of this surveillance was definitely him. God Feng Zhao was just suffering along with him. After all, God Feng Zhao and Grievous were very familiar with each other. Dustless was an outsider with an unknown identity and strength. He was also a rare male elf user. It was normal for Grievous to be suspicious. I also protest. Dustless suddenly spoke. He looked up and saw the small broken house beside the stable. Dustless was unhappy. He pointed at God Feng Zhao and said, this place suits him. I want to live somewhere else. Why should I live here? In the end, you are the outsider. You should be the one living here. God Feng Zhao looked at Dustless angrily. Before he even got close to the stable, he could already smell the stench. Is this place suitable for humans to live? Why? What a joke. Based on strength. Dustless looked at God Feng Zhao with disdain and sneered, you are just a loser. How dare you talk terms with me? Are you itching for a beating again? It's just a matter of a thought for me to destroy you. You, God Feng Zhao's face turned black. Being humiliated by Dustless like this, even a clay man would be angry. This brat's mouth is really asking for a beating. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2184. Dustless was naturally unhappy about being watched. In the original novel, Fengzhou was very carefree and even received special treatment from Grievous. Why did it change when it came to Dustless? Watch? Dream on. If you have any dissatisfaction, you can ask that old witch. I don't care. Fengzhou was like mud that couldn't support a wall. He walked towards the wooden house next to the stable. It seemed like he had accepted his fate. What about you? Alice looked at Dustless with a warning look. This is the Alicia Blood Academy. Even though it was a short sentence, the meaning Alice wanted to express was very simple. No matter if you were a dragon or a ferocious tiger, you had to tuck your tail between your legs when you were an Alicia. Quite a few people have said similar words to me, Li Yao said. Dustless smiled faintly, unmoved. But in the end, I only said one thing to them. What? Alice's eyes were rolling. She was much more interested in Dustless than Fengzhou. Your rules. What does it have to do with me? Dustless said nonchalantly. You brat. Hearing this, Alice's face was extremely gloomy. She clenched her fists tightly and the corner of her mouth twitched. Don't think that you bring me to see that old witch. Dustless interrupted Alice. You're ordering me? Alice's face was filled with hostility. She was in a bad mood after being interrupted by Dustless. Hee, if you want to fight with me, that's fine. Dustless was always calm. He smiled. Private fights are prohibited in the academy. If you're not afraid of punishment and your reputation being ruined, I don't care either. Even you, the leader of the night group, have no qualms about it. Why should I care about that? You, Alice's face turned green. She naturally understood what Dustless meant. She knew that she had broken the law, so he was willing to punish her and deal a huge blow to the reputation of the night group. Fine, come with me. Alice was helpless. She could only agree to Dustless's request to see Dean Grievous. In the quiet office, Grievous crossed her arms in front of her. Her high cleavage almost popped out. She stood in front of the window, quietly looking at the entire Alicia Academy. Her bright eyes sparkled as if nothing could escape her gaze. However, ever since Dustless appeared, she was at a loss. Her heart was filled with deep confusion. Could it be a coincidence? It was understandable that God Fengzhou was a male elf. After all, he was the heir of the Demon King. But why was Dustless able to sign a contract with an elf? Moreover, it was that holy sword. The elven seal on Dustless's hand was not a bluff. Dong dong dong. At the same time, the dull knocks on the door suddenly echoed, and Grievous's thoughts were pulled back. She shook her head and threw away all the confusion in her head, returning to the cold and wise director. Come in. Creak. The door was gently pushed open, and Alice slowly walked in with Dustless. The moment Grievous saw Dustless appear, surprise flashed in the corner of her eyes. What's the matter, Alice? Alice, said Grievous calmly, with authority. This guy is dissatisfied with your arrangement and is unwilling to live with God Fengzhou, so I brought him here to see you. Alice reported truthfully. Although she was dissatisfied with Dustless, she did not exaggerate. No wonder the knights had such high prestige. Is that so? Grievous nodded slightly. Then, her gaze landed on Dustless. She asked, since God Fengzhou has chosen to obey, why did you refuse? Because he is a coward. He likes to resign himself to adversity. Dustless said calmly, don't compare that guy to me. I hate being controlled by others. This guy really doesn't show any mercy. Alice frowned secretly. She thought that Dustless would lower his head when he saw Grievous. She did not expect him to be so arrogant and even reproachful. Interesting kid, Grievous was not angry. She curled her lips elegantly and said with interest, actually, we can talk about conditions. Some people in this world are special, and it is normal for them to have special privileges. However, at this point, Grievous paused and narrowed his eyes. Then, what is special about you? The meaning of this sentence was very simple. It meant that one could have special privileges, but one had to prove that one was different. In other words, Dustless had to speak with his strength. Special. Dustless nodded slightly and thought for a while. Then, he smiled evilly. Sure, I can prove that I am different. However, it is too unfair for me to take out my trump card because of your words. Fair. Grievous frowned and said coldly, don't lower my impression of you. In my eyes, the word fair is very childish. Survival of the fittest. How can there be fairness in this world? You misunderstood what I meant. Glancing at Grace, Dustless said softly, how about this, let's make a bet. If I win, Wu Chen's eyeballs looked at Alice maliciously and the corners of his mouth curved into a mischievous arc, this bastard. Seeing this, Alice's heart skipped a beat. Although she did not know what Dustless was thinking, she was sure that this guy was scheming against her. We can have a competition. You can find someone to fight with me. If you lose, this Alice will be my servant from now on. Pointing at Alice's face, Dustless looked at Alice seriously. This girl always goes against me. I can't let her go. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 gifts plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2185. Duel. Gruaz was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect Dustless to propose such a condition. He couldn't help but look at this kid in shock and think to himself, arrogant little brat, you, this, asshole. Alice bit out each word as she scolded Dustless. She glared at him and said, a bet is a bet. Why is the wager me? I don't like the sight of you, okay? Dustless replied willfully without even blinking. Boom. 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 Alice couldn't hold it in any longer. Her divine aura erupted like a flood that broke through a dam. She looked at Gruaz respectfully and said, Sir Dean, let me have a duel with this guy. If I lose, I will be his maid. Gruaz was silent. He just stared at Dustless. For some reason, she couldn't see through this seemingly harmless young man. Dustless seemed to be hiding 10,000 meters under the sea. She couldn't see through him. He was dangerous and mysterious. I can promise you that if you win, you will get the privileges you deserve, and, glancing at Alice, Gruaz said in a deep voice, as for Alice, since she has agreed to be your maid, then let's do it. But what if you lose? Gruaz asked with a smile. I will lose? Dustless curled his lips in disdain and said disapprovingly, if I lose, you can do whatever you want, even if you want me to die. The premise is that you can beat me. Then it's a deal. The time is set to 3 days later. I will go and watch personally. As for the person you will fight with, let's talk about it 3 days later. Gruaz glanced at Dustless and said, but if you lose, you have to be my maid for a few years. Pfft. Hearing this, Alice couldn't help but laugh out loud, and she imagined Dustless's appearance in the maid uniform, and her smile became even wider. Dustless glanced at Gruaz gloomily. That saying was indeed right, old people who don't die are thieves. No wonder God Fengzhou always called Gruaz an old witch. That old woman. She really has a bad taste. In the corridor, Dustless was still complaining. To be honest, he was really helpless to be interested in an old woman. He couldn't help but ask himself, it's all because I'm too handsome. Even an old woman likes me. Even though Dustless was graceful, had a great figure, and had an extremely exquisite appearance, Dustless still felt helpless when she looked at him with interest. What's with your expression? Seeing the displeasure on Dustless's face, Alice felt even more indignant. She said angrily, you still dare to question the dean's decision? Don't joke with your life. Hee hee. Dustless laughed dryly and rubbed his nose. In the past, he used to joke around with his life. Hey, am I too handsome? Dustless suddenly blocked Alice's way. His expression was serious, and he didn't seem to be joking at all. You're so ugly. Alice scolded angrily with a red face. She secretly scolded Dustless for asking such a question. Even if he was narcissistic, he should know where to stop. Even though Dustless was really very handsome, with regular facial features, bright eyes, and the confidence that he had everything under control was extremely attractive, Alice still opened her mouth to deny it due to her feminine modesty. As the leader of the Knights, if Alice praised Dustless as handsome, how could she establish herself in the future? Wouldn't she be seen as a love-struck fool? TSK. I knew you would answer like that. You said I'm ugly, but it indirectly means that I'm ridiculously handsome, Dustless said with a smile, his face full of cunning and sinister. You bastard, don't you know the word low-key? Alice was really speechless. Can you not be so narcissistic? I want to be low-key, okay? Dustless pursed his lips and said with a helpless expression, even your dean is charmed by me and wants to live with me. Really, it's lonely at the top. As Dustless refused to live in the small shabby house next to the stable, Gravis also offered generous conditions to let Dustless live in her house temporarily. Don't say such things to me in the future. It's your fortune that the dean has taken a liking to you. Be content. You can also take the opportunity to ask the dean about his attainments in the aspect of elven envoys. Alice's tone was sour, jealous, and hateful. In her opinion, Dustless was just lucky. He didn't know how lucky he was, and he even slandered Gravis. How despicable. According to what you said, I have to thank her? Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. This girl was still too naive. In the past few hundred years, Dustless had experienced too much. He had played countless schemes and schemes. Gravis was overestimating himself if he wanted to fight with Dustless with his means. It wasn't that Gravis wanted to teach Dustless. Of course, he couldn't rule out the possibility that he really cherished talent. However, Gravis mostly wanted to monitor Dustless. You can monitor me, so why can't I slander you? Dustless thought in his heart. He didn't think that he was going overboard by slandering Gravis. That dean is really a bad woman, Dustless suddenly said. You. Hearing that, Alice was instantly unhappy. Just as she was about to teach Dustless a lesson, the latter's sudden words made her speechless. If she didn't like me, why would she want to live with me? Don't talk about teaching me techniques. I'm just a rookie. Why would she lower herself to teach me? She obviously wants to be an old cow eating young grass. Sigh, but I don't blame her. It's all because I'm too handsome. Dustless lamented and purposely raised his voice. These words contained a special power that penetrated the soundproof wall and fell into Grace's ears. Pfft! The hot tea that had entered his lungs spurted out. Gravis' face darkened. He could tell that Dustless did it on purpose. You said that I'm an old cow eating young grass. Gravis almost went berserk. The corner of his mouth kept twitching. He felt terrible. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 tips plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2186. The night sky was filled with stars, and a cool breeze blew. The weather suddenly turned cold, and there were naturally fewer people. Most people chose to go back to sleep. After all, the elven messenger's homework was tiring, and no one wanted to waste time on unnecessary things. Of course, there were exceptions to everything. Living in such a nice place, aren't you afraid of being accused of abusing your position? Bad woman. Grieva's room. No, it would be more appropriate to call it a private villa. Crystals were the lighting, and silk was the carpet on the floor. It was extremely extravagant, a living example of a nouveau riche. If you don't like it, you can sleep on the streets. Grievous sat on the sofa, opened a bottle of red wine, and started drinking. If you have anything to ask, just ask. Dustless didn't waste any time. He sat opposite Grievous, knowing that this woman would definitely have a lot of questions for him. After all, it was too strange for a male elven messenger to suddenly appear. You know Demon King Suleiman? Grievous put down the wine glass and asked in a deep voice. She originally thought that God Fengzhou was the successor of the Demon King, but with Dustless's appearance, this matter wasn't as simple as she thought. Of course I know. Dustless nodded. The person who brought disaster to the world 1,000 years ago. You want to say that either God Fengzhou or I is the successor of the Demon King, right? I originally thought that God Fengzhou was the successor of the Demon King, but with your appearance, this possibility was destroyed. Grievous's tone suddenly became heavier. Although it's worth a surprise, to be honest, I don't think this is a good thing. That's for sure. You're afraid that the two Demon Kings will fight and bring disaster to the fish in the moat, right? Wu Chen laughed mischievously. If the school is destroyed, it'll be a tragedy. You. No wonder Alice hates you so much. You don't know how to speak at all. Grievous's tone sounded like she hated Dustless, but her tone was as calm as before. Not only that, there was a hint of something strange. Is this woman a submissive? The worse the words, the more she likes it. Dustless's lips curled up slightly, and he looked at Grievous with a strange gaze. In short, there is only one successor to the Demon King. I don't think I need to say more, right? Grievous looked deeply at Dustless and explained, in other words, between you and Fengzhou, only one of you can become the Demon King. As for who will fail, I don't need to tell you. You called me here in the middle of the night just to talk nonsense? Dustless said absent-mindedly, with a trace of undisguised bitterness in his tone. I'm even prepared to be taken advantage of by you, but you're talking a lot of nonsense to me. Humph. Grievous's mouth twitched, and he said coldly, aren't you afraid that I will kill you and help Feng Zhao become the Demon King? According to his plan, Dustless should try his best to curry favor with him and help him become the Demon King. Now, Dustless' attitude was like he was toying with him. Ignorant woman. From the beginning to the end, I have never said that I want to be the Demon King's successor. I'm also not interested in that Demon King Suleiman. Dustless rubbed his nose, yawned, and said, if I knew you were going to talk nonsense with me, I would have gone to sleep. How dare you? Grievous, who couldn't take it anymore, flew into a rage. He stared at Dustless unkindly and said with a straight face, this is my house. If I don't let you do anything, you have to listen to me. Now, Grievous's eyes suddenly turned, and he suddenly remembered how he teased Fengzhou back then. He immediately ordered, now, wear the maid uniform and clean the room. Also, swish swish swish. Before he finished speaking, Dustless suddenly appeared in front of Grievous. His speed was so fast that even this unfathomable Dean couldn't help but be stunned. While she was in a daze, Dustless suddenly tore her clothes, revealing her voluptuous body. Since you like to wear the maid uniform for others, try it on yourself first. Let me learn a little. Grievous's body seemed to be nailed to the ground. She was dumbfounded and was still in shock. It seemed that she couldn't understand why someone dared to touch her in her own territory. Time flew by quickly. After only a minute, Dustless put the maid uniform on Grievous and said, although you're old, your beauty is still there. You can barely be my servant. Grievous, who came back to her senses, had veins popping out on her forehead. This guy is really too much. Does he know who he is? Does he know whose territory this is? How dare he show off above her head? Boom boom boom. Violent energy waves burst out of his body, shattering the furniture around him. The glass shattered into countless pieces, and even the entire house was shaking. It wasn't hard to see that Grievous was really angry. You want to fight? If you're not afraid of humiliating yourself, fine. Dustless was calm and said indifferently, continue. Anyway, you're wearing the maid uniform now. When that group of knights comes, especially that lass Alice, your image in her heart will probably collapse. You have guts. Grievous seemed to have been electrocuted. Although she was extremely unhappy and angry, her aura disappeared. If she was wearing the maid uniform and Dustless was drinking tea with a satisfied expression, wouldn't their identities be switched? How could she face others in the future? Remember this clearly. Dustless's tones suddenly turned cold. He was no longer as casual and frivolous as before. He warned, don't do childish actions and don't be too self-righteous. I'm playing with you guys because it's my interest. Just treat it as killing time. If I lose interest one day, this school might be attacked by a meteorite from outer space and be smashed to pieces. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2187. You dare threaten me? Grevasse's expression was a little dazed and surprised. He had always been the one threatening others. Who would have thought that one day in the future, he would be threatened by a kid of unknown origin? But, Grevasse pursed his lips and muttered to himself in a voice as soft as a mosquito, what an interesting kid. I'm getting more and more interested in you. Even though Grevasse's accent was very soft, Dustless heard it clearly. He didn't miss a single word. You're indeed a bottom, you pervert. After saying that, Dustless distanced himself from Grevasse with a face full of fear and a look that said, don't mess around. This kid. Why is he asking for a beating? Grevasse covered his eyes with both hands and didn't want to look at Dustless's face anymore. He was definitely a jinx. In these few minutes, he had suffered more grievances than he had in a lifetime. The next morning, after eating breakfast, Dustless rushed to class early. It was the first time that Dustless came into contact with the profession of elven messenger. Even though it was purely useless, there was no harm in having more skills. Stop right there, you perverted beast. A familiar arrogant tone came from behind, as if a noble queen had arrived. Even without looking back, Dustless knew who this person was. In the entire Alicia Elven Academy, only Claire called him a perverted beast. Dustless turned his head and asked, Girl, why are you not in class so early in the morning? Humph, you are my contracted elf. You have no right to interfere with my business, you slave elf. Claire looked like she had eaten gunpowder and stared at Dustless covetously. If you have something to say, just say it, Dustless said helplessly. Cough, cough, cough. Claire coughed twice and stared at Dustless for a while before asking in a slightly embarrassed tone, last night. Dean Grevasse didn't do anything strange to you, right? Strange things? Dustless looked at Claire playfully. He rubbed his chin and laughed, of course I did. That old witch wanted to take advantage of me and almost ruined my chastity. Claire was completely speechless. Dustless's words sounded like a deliberate blow to her. It's good that you're okay. Claire nodded slightly, a cute smile blossoming on her pretty face. Although her mouth was a bit vicious, it was undeniable that this proud girl was kind-hearted. That Dustless. At this moment, a slightly hesitant voice suddenly rang out. Dustless's gaze swept over. It was Alice, who had an unnatural expression on her face. Her face was full of hesitation, as if there was something that she couldn't say. Don't tell me you also want to ask me how I was last night? Dustless said bluntly. Of course not. After her thoughts were exposed, Alice's awkwardness disappeared in a flash. She then said with a red face, after all, there's still the competition in 3 days. If you died, who would I vent my anger on? Then I'm sorry to disappoint you. My life is really tough. Dustless shrugged with a casual expression. That's not right. Why is Dustless still alive and kicking? Didn't that old witch Grevasse teach him a lesson? This shouldn't be, it's definitely not scientific. On the other side, God Fengzhou also noticed Dustless. Seeing him flirting with a beauty early in the morning, he couldn't help but frown. When he was working as a maid in Grevasse's house, he had been tormented quite badly. On the other hand, Dustless's complexion was rosy at this moment. His eyebrows flickered with light, and he was in high spirits. He didn't look like he had been tortured at all. Could it be that old witch Gravasse has learned her lesson? God Fengzhou lowered his head in suspicion. He couldn't help but guess in his heart, or that old witch really wants to eat young grass and has fallen for this kid. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Seeing God Fengzhou acting suspiciously, Dustless smiled without saying anything. He raised his voice and said, "That little mouse hiding in the corner, how long are you going to peep at the long legs of a beauty?" Dustless's words instantly attracted everyone's attention. Everyone's gaze shifted, and God Fengzhou also became the focus of everyone's attention. This shameless pervert, they are both boys, but why is there such a big difference between Dustless and him? Who knows, maybe he is the reincarnation of a pervert. This guy is called God Fengzhou, stay away from him when you see him in the future. A group of girls whispered and looked at God Fengzhou with disdain. Some teachers even used him as a negative example and warned the students to keep a distance from this kid. What does it have to do with me, who peeped at the long legs of a beauty? God Fengzhou looked at the girl's disdainful eyes and glared at Dustless. He gritted his teeth and walked over. If he continued to remain silent at this time, he would really be treated as a pervert. Don't slander me, Dustless. God Fengzhou's face was as black as a black pot. He looked at Dustless confidently. Even though he knew that Dustless was weaker than him, he didn't think that Dustless would dare to mess around. After all, this was Grievous territory, and private fights were prohibited in this school. However, Dustless's next words made him spurt out blood. Dustless lazily raised his right hand and looked at the angry God Fengzhou with a smile. He then slapped him and said, "It is everyone's responsibility to punish a pervert." Pa! Dustless's sneak attack was too fast. God Fengzhou didn't even have time to dodge and was instantly sent flying. Caw caw caw. This slap was merciless and sent God Fengzhou flying more than 10 meters away. His body smashed into the wooden house next to the stable and smashed it into pieces. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2188. Pooh. Celestial being Feng Zhao was beaten to the point of vomiting blood. This seemingly weak slap actually contained a terrifying strength. His entire mouth was slapped crooked by Wu Chen. You dare to hit me?" God Fengzhou was enraged. He was stuttering as he stared at Dustless ferociously. His eyes were like those of a hungry wolf, filled with killing intent. Did I hit the wrong person? Dustless had an innocent look on his face as he said righteously, "You peeked at other people's beautiful legs. You should be grateful that I didn't gouge your eyes out." Dustless looked at him as if he should be grateful. "Bastard, you are framing me." God Fengzhou jumped up in anger. If he had really peeked at other people's legs, he wouldn't have been slapped in vain. However, God Fengzhou claimed that he was innocent. He didn't look at other people's legs at all. He had been plotting how to retaliate against Dustless. "Framing you? Then why are you hiding in the corner? He obviously has a guilty conscience." Dustless chuckled. Although he was being unreasonable, in everyone's ears, it was much more convincing than God Fengzhou's words. Since he didn't peek at other people's legs, why would he hide and peek? After all, God Fengzhou had been hiding in the corner sneakily. Furthermore, his eyes were flickering. He didn't look like a good person. "You bastard." Seeing the house that she had painstakingly built being destroyed, Alice was instantly enraged. "The two of you better stop before you go too far." She pointed her slender finger at Dustless and God Fengzhou and shouted, "Are you provoking me? Or are you doing it on purpose for me to see? If that's the case, I have to congratulate the two of you. The two of you have really angered me." Alice was like a tigress that had gone berserk. Spittle flew everywhere. She was always bullied by insinuations. Even a clay figurine would get angry. "What does it have to do with me?" God Fengzhou glared at Alice. Miraculously, his aura was on par with Alice's. Perhaps at this moment, he had found the feeling of being unassailable. A kind person would be bullied, a kind horse would be ridden. Perhaps after being beaten up several times, Feng had already gained an epiphany. I'm sorry. I still have things to do. I don't have time to fight with this little demon. Goodbye. Wu Chen suddenly left. He stepped on the wind and left in a confident and at ease manner. This fellow really knows how to put on airs. God Fengzhao curled his lips. In fact, he was quite envious of Dustless's unrestrained manner. He could come and go as he pleased. It was just that he was unwilling to admit it. Soon after, his eyes gently rotated before he smiled and said, "If Dustless is willing to accept the punishment, I have nothing to say. Everything must be done according to the law. Don't try to fool me." Alice snorted and looked at Dustless. However, what made Alice angry was that Dustless completely ignored her and left directly. From start to finish, he didn't turn back. It was as if she wasn't talking about him. Stop right there. Seeing Dustless openly ignoring her, all the dissatisfaction in Alice's heart exploded. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. A storm suddenly swept up in the blue sky. Immediately after, clear cries filled the sky, filled with endless arrogance. Looking up, a huge bird with full wings streaked across the sky. That's Alice's contracted spirit, Smolf. The surrounding students were all visibly moved, and they all understood that Alice was being serious. Hearing the arrogant cries, Dustless stopped in his tracks. He was slightly absent-minded as he looked up at the sky. A soaring eagle spread its wings and soared high in the sky. Other than Claire's contracted spirit, this was the second time he saw someone else's contracted spirit. How is it? Isn't it beautiful? Seeing that Dustless was in a daze as he stared at Smolf who was soaring in the sky, Alice blinked her eyes and was extremely pleased with herself. Yes, it's really extraordinary. It seems to be of the wind attribute. After about a few seconds, Dustless retracted his gaze. However, he suddenly looked at Alice. But, what does this have to do with me? You brat, Alice's pretty face flushed red in the next second. However, she was at a loss for words and couldn't refute. After all, what Dustless said was the truth. No matter how beautiful the spirit was, it had nothing to do with Dustless. Private fights are prohibited on campus. You hit someone and even smashed mine. In short, you violated the school rules. Alice looked at Dustless with an unfriendly expression. Go ask that old witch who was watching the show. If she wants to find trouble with me and wants to punish me, then I have nothing to say. He pointed at the tall building in the distance. The windows were open, and the dean, Gravis, was looking at the scene with interest. Dean. Alice's expression changed slightly. A hint of surprise flashed across her eyes. She cursed in her heart. After this brat appeared, the dean seems to be more biased towards him. How is it? You have nothing to say, right? Wu Chen smiled complacently. His smug look made Alice want to beat him up. It was an eyesore. Why does this brat always get special treatment? God Fengzhao was also secretly depressed. He didn't know what made the always impartial witch side with Dustless. They are indeed a bunch of naive brats. I don't have any special treatment. In the end, it's just that this woman is afraid of my strength and is wary of me. Therefore, in some unnecessary situations, she also turns a blind eye. Dustless shook his head. Soon after, under Alice's unhappy gaze, he slowly left again. No one stopped him. Damn it, what's so different about this brat? At this moment, Alice could only stomp her feet in anger. Thinking about what Dustless said casually before, her expression was extremely interesting. She complained in her heart, could it be, this brat really has something going on with the dean? This damn pretty boy, he used flowery words to bewitch the dean. It seemed like this was the only possibility. Otherwise, Alice really couldn't understand why Gravis was so biased towards Dustless. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2189. If Dustless and Grievous knew about this, especially Grievous, if he knew that Alice would slander him like this, he would definitely want to cry. After all, there was nothing between her and Dustless. There must be a problem. I know that old witch's personality. She will definitely seek revenge after being bullied by Dustless a few times. It's too strange that she didn't even move an inch after being bullied by Dustless. Foam Zao bent over with a shrewd look on his face. His shining eyes seemed to be able to see through everything. You brat, stop right there. As a slave elf, you actually don't listen to your master. Claire jogged over. Her little face was flushed pink, looking very cute. Come here. Regardless of whether Dustless was willing or not, Claire pulled Dustless into a corner. Her shifty eyes scanned the surroundings. After confirming that there was no one around, she leaned close to Dustless and whispered in his ear, I couldn't tell that you're so capable. Even that cold Dean was taken care of by you. I do want to take care of her, but that old woman is like a block of wood, Dustless said, rolling his eyes. Block of wood? Claire was stunned. Immediately, she asked with a puzzled expression, what do you mean? Are you saying that she doesn't know how to have fun? That's not it. Dustless shook his head lightly. Although Grievous was very young and had fair skin and a beautiful appearance, his actual age was far beyond this stage. Once a person lived for a long time, some aspects of their instincts would gradually fade, such as the physical aspect. Forget it, get out of my way. I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. I still want to test my contracted elf. Dustless waved his hand impatiently. You dare to make me leave? Bastard, do you want to rebel? Claire put her hands on her hips, overbearing. A mere slave elf was too arrogant. Do you want to turn into charcoal? Slave elf. Her beautiful big eyes locked onto Dustless. Claire had already taken out her long whip at some point. You're always asking for a beating every time we meet. With a flash, Dustless silently appeared behind Claire and lifted her skirt without any hesitation, revealing her pure and flawless skin. Paw. After a few consecutive slaps, the scarlet handprints almost covered her snow-white skin. You perverted beast, you dare to spank my butt? Claire's anger multiplied. Her flame-like red hair stood on end and flames burned around her body. Why wouldn't I dare? Anyway, you call me a big pervert every day. If I don't do something perverted, wouldn't I have been scolded for nothing? That would be a huge loss for me. Dustless blinked innocently, as if he was the one who was at a disadvantage. Claire was so angry that she trembled and couldn't even speak properly. She angrily said, turn into charcoal for me, you perverted smelly. Aw, Claire Lucio, how embarrassing. You've even thrown away the basic etiquette of a noble. It's really embarrassing to do such a crude action. This sudden voice was like a demon's, without the slightest hint of warning. It always appeared when Claire was at her most unhappy. Oh, it's Linslet. The relationship between the two of you is really extraordinary. Dustless gazed at Linslet with a chuckle and said meaningfully, you always follow Claire wherever she goes. The relationship between the two of you is really good. I also find it strange. After hearing Dustless's words, Claire suddenly understood. She crossed her arms and asked arrogantly, Linslet, you're not secretly following me, are you? Or, do you want to talk to me? Nonsense, why would I want to talk to you? Linslet's hair stood on end. She didn't even stay silent and directly retorted, I only value your contracted spirit, that's all. No, he's not your contracted spirit yet. Dustless has never acknowledged you as his master. Squat down, call me master. It would have been better if Linslet hadn't said anything, but now that she did, Claire was immediately alarmed. She stared at Dustless with an unfriendly expression and raised her long whip high up in the air. This woman really knows how to cause trouble. Dustless glanced at Linslet in annoyance. If she wanted him to call Claire master, he might as well kill her. Claire Lucio, is this how you treat your contracted elf? Linslet looked at Claire mockingly. She suddenly changed her angle and threw herself at Dustless. Her movements were as smooth as flowing water and as fast as lightning. When he reacted, Dustless was also stunned. How about it? Are you interested in being my servant? There are countless benefits. Linslet leaned close to Dustless's ear and blew a mouthful of fragrant hot air. Mixed with her faintly discernible body fragrance, it made people absent-minded for a while. Especially when she mentioned benefits, Linslet deliberately emphasized the word benefits. She even stuffed Dustless's arm into her cleavage and deliberately shook it slowly. The subtle touch made Dustless frown slightly. This guy is really strange. Is he really a man? His skin is better than mine, his face is prettier than mine, and his body even has a fragrance. Are you kidding me? After taking a deep breath of Dustless's scent, Linslet's face was full of enjoyment. She didn't even realize that she was lying unconsciously in Dustless's arms at this moment. Female pervert, is it really okay for you to take advantage of me like this? Linslet looked like a hungry baby. All the pores on her body were open, as if she wanted to take all of Dustless's body scent. Suddenly releasing Dustless, Linslet pointed at Dustless's cheek and solemnly swore, I've decided. From now on, you are my servant. Her bright eyes were dominated by a strong sense of possessiveness. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.